What is up, Level Up Nation, and welcome to the Monday, June 21st edition of LvLUp Live, your home for gaming and esports news, brought to you by OTN Media. My name is Fiasco. You can call me Jon, and that dude right next to me, trapped in his little quarantine box, is the king of the courtside king, aka Joey. What's up, buddy? Happy Monday.
Jon, I am doing well. I don't know if I'd ever call any Monday happy, but I am excited to be here with LvLUp Nation, to be here with our OTN community tonight. It's been a tough Monday, though. I know we are both very, very busy today to kick off the week, and it's going to be quite a busy week ahead as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great week. But hopefully it is nothing like what we experienced earlier today at our big boy jobs, because that, for lack of better terms, sucked. All right, Nation, make sure you follow the show if you're not doing so already on Twitter and Facebook at LvLUp Live. That is at LvLUp Live. And while you're on Twitter, rumor has it Joey and myself are in need of more followers because, hey, who doesn't like followers? Follow Joey at Courtside King, myself at Fiasco for all the shenanigans between the two of us, as well as awesome gaming and esports news throughout the week. So you don't have to wait to the next show. You can get it live time reaction from Joey and myself there on Twitter, so make sure you follow there as well. And Nation, as always, this show is available on a podcast feed. In fact, we call it the LvLUp Podcast, so it's so convenient to find. And the LvLUp Podcast is available on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else podcasts are collected. It's pretty much there as well. Just give it a little search there. And if you are listening to the podcast version of the show, please do leave us a review and a rating, as they both do go a long way. Not only help grow the audience, but also give us the feedback that we need to make this show what you, our listeners and viewers, want. So please do leave us that feedback. Joey, it's Monday. It's time for another episode of LvLUp Live. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. So bear with us because we're kind of coming off that little bit of an E3 high, but it is just going to keep going as we get closer to July. There's a lot more still to be announced by a lot of publishers. Just looking at a few things, we're going to talk about G2 Esports partnering up with LvLOrent, kind of a cool activation going on there. We're going to sum up some E3 numbers, what it looks like stat-wise on social media. We're going to dive further into a few of the things we saw at E3 because we have gotten a bit more clarification since then. We're going to talk about a PS3 leak that is allegedly going on, just to give you guys a little bit of a warning in case it does end up being true. We're going to dive into the perspective of some of those events coming later in June and July. Then we're going to look at some rumors, Jon. There's a lot of big rumors floating around right now. Interested to get the community's take, as well as give some of our thoughts based on some of the things we've heard and seen out there. Maybe set some expectations for a couple of these as well as we get closer down.
Joey, if there's one thing I learned in high school, is rumors are never good because sometimes they're true and sometimes they're not, and sometimes they destroy reputations. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about them because they're fun also. So awesome. So we have a ton of stuff in today's show, Joey. Before we can even get into those amazing topics, we have to figure out what in the world we're drinking. Of course, it's time for the drink of choice segment. Joey, so your beverage for today, the 21st of June. Can you believe June's almost over? It's like July's like right around the corner.
Yeah, it's been moving quick, and it's just not going to slow down from here. Unfortunately, my drink is going to be slow. I didn't have time to grab a drink, so I'm just drinking whatever water is at my desk. If I run out of water, then I'm probably going to be coughing too. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, we cut it a little close today. So we're just doing with what we got.
Rocking the sparkling ice. Grape raspberry is your flavor today. So no alcohol for either of us. Yeah, it's a little bit of a letdown, but you know what? You'll get over it. We'll be back Thursday with, pretty sure with alcoholic beverages. So I'm sure we'll make up for it then. Joey, we have our beverages. We have a ton of topics to cover today. Let's get right into it. Let's get right into gaming and esports news. Let's go.
Absolutely. Now, guys, we're not going to cover every single thing that has happened because we haven't done one of these in a couple weeks. We've been doing kind of special E3-based shows, and because we're coming right off of E3, it is going to be a little bit games heavy. We will be touching on some esports like Call of Duty League, Overwatch League, maybe a little NBA 2K here and there, and then some League of Legends. We're not going to go super esports heavy as we are still kind of on that downslope of E3 with all these game announcements coming out. Okay, now that expectations are set, let's jump into esports after I said we're not going to talk too much about it. G2 Esports has partnered up with LvLOrent. They're going to launch a series of digital-first activations on platforms such as TikTok, Twitch. I think you can probably see them on some other social media out there as well. Both entities will plan to further collaborate on global campaigns and events. We did get a little taste of what one of those will be. One of those first global campaign activations will be League of Legends player Reckless being featured in Ralph Lauren's Wimbledon campaign. So the legendary tennis tournament of Wimbledon, Reckless will be there as one of those presenting athletes for Ralph Lauren. On top of that, Ralph Lauren was named the exclusive fashion outfitter for G2 Esports as well. This is a big deal, John. I don't know how well Ralph Lauren is going to translate over to the esports audience in a sense, but as far as big term deals, Ralph Lauren is one of those big clothing apparel makers out there, very popular. We've talked about some other brands out there in general that are just popular in fashion when it comes to like Gucci. We've seen the watches before. We've seen a number of other activations with esports teams in that fashion space. Ralph Lauren being one of the newest ones. And someone like Reckless, John, I think, again, I'm just going to go on a limb here and say I think he's a perfect model in a sense for something like a Ralph Lauren. He has a very good figure able to fit into those. We've seen him model before for Fnatic. We've seen him model before for other things. Like I believe he was a big part of that Gucci collaboration when he was on Fnatic. Now moving over to G2, G2 is going to use his abilities in the same kind of way. He's going to use him in these ads for Ralph Lauren. And I think it's going to work out for everyone involved. G2 is probably going to get a sizable amount of money. Ralph Lauren is entering into the esports space, and Reckless is going to do very well doing it.
Okay, so I may be showing my Americanism here. I always thought it was Ralph Lauren. Like I didn't realize like Lauren was like the fancy way of saying.
I think it's Lauren.
Wow,
but I could be wrong. Chat, you can correct me. I'm pretty sure it's like French, isn't it?
Sure, why not? I mean, I don't rock Ralph Lauren or whatever. I mean,
oh my gosh, now I got to look it up somewhere.
No, of course. But podcast and viewers here on Twitch, I'm going to go ahead and give Joey's TLDR real quick. Reckless is going to be a model because Joey has the hots for Reckless. Let's be real here.
Reckless John started it. John was the introduction to that right there.
Reckless is a very, very handsome man. I have no problem saying that. Reckless is the ideal candidate for G2. I will 100% agree with that. I don't know. So like, it's just weird. Like this continued crossover with esports and luxury clothing brands. It feels very, very odd. Like it's a partnership that, I mean, it really does break the stereotype. Again, when you think of gamers and people who compete in esports, there is an unhealthy stereotype that society kind of automatically jumps to. So then when you hear a partnership like G2 and Ralph Lauren, it's like, it doesn't make sense. But apparently it's working because, G2 is not the only one doing this. There's tons of other esport organizations out there with luxury brands of clothing. Like we've talked about all the ridiculous partnerships with like, what was was it Dolce and Gabbana or something like that with League of Legends or something? It was something absolutely insane, but like it continues to grow. It makes sense for G2. It brings more money into esports. Digital first activations like TikTok and Twitch. TikTok is kind of ruling the social social world, if you will. So that's a solid thing there. I know I'm just kind of this is the part that gets me. Wimbledon. I've always found it interesting when esport athletes go to traditional sports stadiums and try to cross promote. I feel like there's certain titles that do incredibly well at it. But when I think League of Legends, I don't think Wimbledon, and I definitely don't think tennis. So it's weird, but I get the campaign. It makes sense for the most part. So yeah, I like it.
I think the other thing with that, at least to the way I'm understanding it, is it's going to be Reckless along with something around like 15 other athletes standing up there. So you're going to get people probably from golf. You're going to get people from, I don't know, it's over in Europe. So there's probably some other sports that'll be included in there, maybe polo, different things. Rugby's big over there, cricket. I don't know what route they're going to go, but either way, he's going to be standing up there with something around 15 other athletes. So instead of it just being an awkward, hey, this guy is coming to present your trophy, it's going to be him along with these other 15 athletes where a lot of them are probably well known. So if anything, for G2's sake, it's like, oh, I know that athlete. I know that athlete. Who is that dude? Oh, he's looking good over there in that Ralph Lauren polo kind of thing. And then they might look him up, and then they might find out Reckless. He plays for the League of Legends team. What's League of Legends? Then they look up G2 Esports. So I think there is a possibility for some crossover because he's aligned with other athletes, as opposed to just, hey, this awkward, skinny-looking kid is now up here holding a trophy. Where's he from, kind of thing. So I think it's going to work out well. We'll see how it goes. Again, we've seen fashion in esports before. We haven't quite seen anything like Ralph Lauren, however you want to pronounce it, make their way into the space yet. So it'll be a little bit of a different collaboration here. We'll see how it goes, though. Again, both entities plan to further collaborate on global campaigns. That is with an S at the end. So this will probably not be the last time we hear of it this year.
If I may go on a slight tangent talking about crossovers real quick, Joey, did you see the winner of the U.S. Open, his interview like yesterday, I think, talking about how before...
Yeah, we're watching Call of Duty.
Yes. Do you mind if I play that clip here real quick for everyone on Twitch?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I think this is absolutely fantastic. Let me go ahead and...
That was Jon Rahm, right?
Sure. I don't watch golf.
I won a bet on him for winning the championship this weekend.
Look at you. So I'm going to go ahead and play this real quick. Super short, 53 seconds long. This is great.
Right when you wake up, where your mind starts going.
I got woken up by crows. I don't know why. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking, man, those birds. No, I mean, I did the same routine, you know, for people that follow this, and I'm a shock a few people. I woke up excited because I could watch a match that a Call of Duty tournament, you know, which was esports that was going on. A team that I follow, which is Optic Chicago, had just played and the night before, and I knew I could watch it. It's about an hour and a half, so I had a busy morning. And I went downstairs, you know, got my water, my coffee. The chef was making breakfast, and I was just watching my Call of Duty event. That's simple as that. Then Kelly came down with the baby, spent some dad time, and then got ready. I mean, I know, shocking for some people, but yeah, that's what I was doing.
We're going to go back to the WebEx.
I mean, how awesome is that, right? Optic Chicago gets a massive shout out to the international media because the guy who wins the U.S. Open tournament woke up on Father's Day, hung out with his family, and watched Call of Duty League. I mean, let's be real here. That's pretty freaking awesome. Like that was such a really cool moment. And I love how he's like, you know, this is going to surprise a couple people here, but
and then the pause.
The pause.
He's like, should I really say this?
He's like, I'm trying to collect myself, but yeah, I watched Call of Duty, an esports tournament, and like, it's like he is so happy, but at the same time, he's like, I feel the judgment. I thought that was the coolest thing ever, and like, as someone who doesn't pay attention to golf, like that makes me want to learn more about this guy. Like that is so awesome that he came out and said that.
Yeah, he's one of the younger players on tour, and I think this is something you're going to see more and more, too. You've seen soccer athletes. I mean, even some of the older soccer athletes, you look at, like, well, really old David Beckham. Then on a little bit on the younger side, you have Sergio Aguero. Different big players that are known worldwide, like your Messis in a sense, are starting to buy into esports. They're starting to invest into it, and now you have more players watching it. Maybe some of them because of their investments, maybe some because they are of that younger generation, like a Jon Rahm, who are just interested in it. They've played Call of Duty growing up. Now there's an esports scene for it, an esports scene where teams paid like lots and lots of money to get their slots in there. So the teams are very invested into it as well, not only financially, but just in resources too. So you're looking at this scene, and it's going to be something we see more and more as we see younger players move into sports. You're going to hear more of this crossover coming out, I have a feeling. Oh my gosh, your comment in chat. Okay, so E3, guys, E3 wrapped up. We have done a lot of wrap up, and we still have more coming. We have a few more articles being written. We're talking with some developers. Maybe we'll have some developer interviews coming to you guys here on LvLUp in the near future. But for now, just to break down a little bit of the social media numbers, this is coming from Synthesio. They do a lot of like organization as far as like looking through different database numbers. What is the impact on social media of different events? So this is what the breakdown ends up looking like. Sticking things off first, E3 showcases with the most social mentions. This falls just in line with what John and I said were pretty much the top studios or top showcases overall. And it's Xbox Bethesda coming in at 1.1 million impressions, or I believe this is 1.1 million tweets with their hashtag used, actually. Second is Nintendo at 738,000. Third is a big drop-off. So you have about a 300,000 drop-off from Xbox to Nintendo. Then you have another 400 drop-off from Nintendo to Ubisoft down at 231,000. And then Devolver and Square Enix is another drop-off, both under 50K apiece. John, this is pretty much how we thought things would shake out. We rated Devolver as the third best showcase at the event. With that being said, Devolver is full of a bunch of indie titles. When it comes to social media, a lot of those indie titles don't quite carry as well as something like an Ubisoft showing off like Rainbow Six Siege content, showing off Rainbow Six, was it Extraction, I think is what they ended up going with for Quarantine, Parasite, all that good stuff. And then they also showed off Avatar. So Ubisoft, with some of those big name games involved there, did end up beating out our third best showcase, in our opinion, of Devolver. But overall, this pretty much fell into line of what we were expecting.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, if we were to rank it based upon the most people watching, then I feel like Ubisoft definitely would have been up there if that was our rankings. But our rankings was who had the best presentation, who had the best showcase, who was able to deliver their titles in an effective manner to draw that attention. And you're 100% correct. When Devolver goes up there and is talking about a bunch of indie titles, that doesn't stand a chance against Ubisoft. It just doesn't. Not when you have massive titles out there like Rainbow Six and like the new Avatar game. You know, it just can't hold weight, and it's not fair. But does that mean Ubisoft had a great showcase overall? Not necessarily. Devolver has a very unique way of presenting its titles. A lot of people who watch it are highly entertained about how they go about doing it. And I think that alone has more traction than something that's kind of like a straightforward presentation, kind of like what we saw with Ubisoft. But it doesn't surprise me that they had, you know, triple the amount, if not more, you know, the amount of viewers than Devolver did. So it makes sense. It makes complete sense.
Yeah, I think the bigger thing is just how big Xbox and Nintendo is above Ubisoft as well. Yeah. Like Ubisoft is a big company. I mean, you think of like Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed and a bunch of other big name games. And sure, we didn't see a couple of those, but they still showed a number of titles like Rainbow Six came out. The Avatar reveal was big, but overall still nothing compared to what we saw from Xbox, Bethesda, and Nintendo when it came to social media mentions. Over to games with the most social media mentions. So everyone, chat, listeners, take a minute to just think, who do you think will be the top choice here? I can tell you guys, I was very far off. I did not expect this one at all. But 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the most social media mentions across E3
you should go from
goes
5
to Among Us. What's that?
You should start at the bottom and work your way up to the first place.
Why can't I? Oh,
build
yeah, I could have done that. But it's already out there. Among Us, guys. The intruder has already shown himself or herself, depending on who's playing. Among Us coming out with 253.5 thousand mentions across social media. This includes Facebook, Twitter, all of that, I believe, is what they measure. This one was a surprise to me, John. We have all these big new games like Halo and Starfield and Avatar and Guardians of the Galaxy. And the one that's mentioned the most is Among Us.
Yeah, and it's the one that didn't really have that much of an update. It was like, okay, you have new skins. Yeah, okay, you have a couple new tasks coming out. Like, in comparison to what else we saw during E3, the Among Us announcement by far had, like, the least amount of content coming out. But that just goes to show you how popular Among Us still is. You know, it blew up during, you know, the quarantine life. And, you know, it's still going strong, which is great for Among Us. It's a game that's been out for several years prior to the pandemic, and the pandemic was the thing that made it really pop. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I mean, they're not going to be upset about it. So yeah, you know, it is surprising that Among Us is the most talked about game across social media, just because in comparison to your Halo, your Starfield, your Forza, your Battlefield, your Avatar, your Rainbow Six. There's so many great titles out there, but Among Us was the one that stole the stage. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, definitely one I did not expect on there. Number 2 is in there for a funny reason as well. Not because it looked amazing, not because people were stunned by it, but because it's become a meme on social media. And that is Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin from Square Enix. It came in number 2 with 216,000 impressions at this point, or social media mentions rather at this point. Number 3 rounds out to Battlefield 2042 at 100,072. I don't know how to say this. 172.4K, because I'm losing my mind here on this lovely Monday. Forza Horizon 5 at 154,000. And then we had Halo Infinite wrapping things up in 5th at 146,000. So overall, pretty close. You have Among Us about 100,000 above what we have here in 3rd place of Battlefield 2042. But for the most part, everyone in the same general consensus group of about 250 to 150,000 for those top 5. Outside of Among Us, I'm not really super surprised by the titles. Stranger of Paradise making it there on kind of an awkward case. But overall, Battlefield, I feel like belongs there. Forza and Halo. I wouldn't be surprised if shortly after, whenever this was measured, we did see Starfield move up into there as well. But overall, yeah, this is not super surprising outside of Among Us to me. Anything else on those measurements, sir?
No, I'm just still shocked like everyone else that Among Us was number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did not pull the data, but I want to say, so like when you look at like viewership for the overall conferences, it pretty much fell exactly as you would expect it. Nintendo was top, then a little bit further down, you had Microsoft, Bethesda. A little bit further down, you had Ubisoft and Square Enix, and Devolver, I think, rounded out the top 5. So overall, it's pretty much what you expected in terms of viewership, so didn't pull that one. But overall, that metric is out there if you guys want to check it out. I think I posted on Discord as well. But that is that, and that is pretty much your E3 stats sum up. We'll have a little bit other things coming out here and there, whether it be articles from us, whether it be some other news leaking out from different publishers. We should still get a few more announcements as we head closer to July. Next bit, just wrapping up a little bit more of E3, and this is just some further clarification. So at the end of the Microsoft Bethesda or the Xbox Bethesda showcase, they showed a game, RedFall from Arcane. It's the Arcane studio down in Austin. Formerly, they did stuff like, I'm trying to think, Dishonored, I think, was done in that studio. I believe Prey was the latest title done in that studio. So a number of big name campaign games, really good graphical additions to the gaming industry at the time. So some really cool stuff that really develops itself on choice as well. In the end, we were not super impressed with the CGI trailer shown. I think a lot of people got the wrong impression, including John, Drew, and I when we watched it live. So just to bring a little bit more clarification, I'm sure there'll be more throughout the year, and we'll probably see it at next year's E3 as well. The game will not play like Left 4 Dead and Back 4 Blood. Everyone is thinking this is Left 4 Dead with vampires. That is not at all the case. It's going to be a single-player open-world campaign. That is the main focus of it. Complete open world, single player experience. It will have the option of adding players in via co-op as well, though, but it is not meant to be a purely co-op game like a Left 4 Dead, like a Back 4 Blood. It is meant to be a deep single player campaign with the option of having up to 3 other players in with you as well. On top of that, again, guys, Arcane, if you've never played Dishonored and Prey, they're very deep games. There's very deep story elements, very deep levels and strong mechanics involved, where they kind of bring unique approaches to the games, and they've really made it their own in that sense. You're going to see that in this game as well. So again, if you're like John and I, you weren't wooed by the CGI. I've been told by a number of people at this point, do not write this game off. So again, just mentioning it here, and I'm sure we'll hear more, but it is not quite what the CGI trailer led people to believe it was.
Yeah, so this goes back to the point I tried to make. Actually, it wasn't even on the show. It was actually on the Star Wars podcast that we were guesting on. One of the questions that were asked to Joey and myself was, the whole idea about Star Wars video games not coming out during E3, and the whole thing about, once you put a trailer out there, people get an automatic impression of what this game is going to be, and if it's a bad trailer, people are going to have a bad reaction. That holds true to this as well. Redfall was so confusing in regards to what it was trying to portray in that trailer that we got it wrong. A lot of people on social media got it wrong. Yes, we're not going to count the game out, but when you watch that trailer with zero context of what this game is supposed to be, you leave that trailer absolutely confused. And that's the reason why people are sitting here going like, oh, well, it looks like it's a Left 4 Dead. And obviously they've come out and said, no, it's not a Left 4 Dead. But the problem is that when there's no other context, when there's nothing in there that goes to show you what gameplay might be like, what that style of game it's going to be like, people have to jump to conclusions based upon what you, the developer, put in your showcase. This is a prime example of a trailer that didn't really wow anybody, mainly because people left with more questions than they came in with. So Redfall's now, the developers behind it are having to come out, and they are having to clarify exactly what's going on with it. And rightfully so. If they want people to buy this game, if they want people to be hyped about Redfall, they need to come out and they need to talk about this game. So not going to write it off. I'm going to keep it an open book. We're going to see what happens. But it was definitely not the start they wanted to this title.
No, absolutely. And the other one we've mentioned, Left 4 Dead and Back 4 Blood. Squircle in chat also mentions like Fortnite Save the World mode. If you guys remember that one, kind of before the Battle Royale blew up, there was a Save the World mode. And I think it's technically still out there as well. I don't know if it even gets any support at this point with the Battle Royale being the main focus, but that was another vibe that a lot of people got out there. It's like, okay, save the world. We're going to do it instead of against zombies like we've done in other games. It's going to be against vampires. So it's pretty much Left 4 Dead or Fortnite Save the World in a vampire-esque mode. That is not going to be the case again. Now, I think graphically, it does kind of look like Fortnite. It has that, I guess cartoony is the best way of pronouncing it, or looking at the different types of graphics involved. It did feel kind of cartoony with a little bit more of a grotesque aspect to some of the vampires. But overall, I think that's going to even be developed a little bit further as we move from CGI to actual gameplay. We'll see what that end up looking like. Because when you look at stuff like Dishonored, you look at stuff like Prey especially, it is a gorgeous game. And seriously, if you guys have not played on Prey, go look at it on a new version Xbox Series S or X. Load it up on a PC. It's on Game Pass. The game is absolutely gorgeous, and it will just mess with your mind. I am going to admit this on the show. I got lost in the opening part for God knows how long, guys. Like, I probably spent a good 45 minutes in the opening part just trying to figure out what the heck I was supposed to be doing. And it's embarrassing, but if you guys play through it, I'm surprised if I'm the only one that gets stuck, because I guarantee other people will as well. But it's a fascinating game. Like, they really mess with things. There's certain parts, John, like, I don't know if you've had a chance to play it, where you're seeing a computer screen like on a desk, and you can click through the computer screen on the emails. But like, a lot of games will go ahead and just pull it up and like make the screen like it is your main browser at that point. This keeps it just on the side of the desk. So you're looking through the emails like almost off to the side. It's a really cool design, really well done graphically, and it's just the level of creativity in a game like Prey and a game like Dishonored, where those choices matter, where there's stealth mechanics, where different little things can come together. Imagining all those elements brought into something like RedFall, I think gives it a little bit more perspective of what it could be. You add these cool vampire enemies, you add all this creativity that we saw in Dishonored and Prey. It could be a masterpiece that slides under the radar like Prey did. But again, it didn't really woo us at the beginning. The CGI was kind of misleading as well, if you look at what they're actually trying to deliver here. So I'm hoping we eventually get something more. Maybe it's an E3 next year, because it is a 2022 release. Honestly, I'd be cool if we got a nice deep dive at some point. Like, maybe they just do something like we saw with Sony and Horizon Zero, or Horizon Forbidden West rather, or like Nintendo did with Nintendo Golf. Just give us like that one little direct type of thing. Show us what the game is about. Give us some gameplay. I want to be excited for this game, but again, like John said, it still feels a little bit misleading with the CGI aspect, and I'm still not 100% sure what to expect with it.
And Joey, I just want to go ahead and say thank you for your honesty. It's a judgment-free zone. Nobody is judging you, and if someone is judging you, shame on you for not judging him on Twitter at Courtside King. If you're going to do it, make it public. Don't sit behind that computer screen. Don't sit there behind your earbuds or your car radio listening to this. Take it to social media. Call him out and let him know. I mean, that is the socially acceptable thing to do in 2021. So Joey, it is a safe space, and I don't judge you.
Oh my gosh. See, you know what happens, guys? If people start calling me out on Twitter, we're going to do a stream of John one night where he has to play through that opening sequence of Prey, and we'll see if he gets lost on stream. That would be fun, wouldn't it, chat? I think, yeah, LvLUp Podcast listeners, if you want to see that, let us know. That is at LvLUp Live on Twitter, LvLUP Live.
Joey, you act like I wasn't the guy who was streaming on OTN Media who forgot how to trigger the memories in Life is Strange.
Oh, that was funny too.
I literally sat there for a half an hour trying to figure out what button it was. Fun fact, on the PC, it's spacebar. But I couldn't remember for the life of me. And like, it was bad. So Joey, I mean, let's be real here. I mean, Pat called me out on it, and rightfully so. So I have no problem being stuck in the game trying to figure out what in the world's going on.
Okay, Pat was also the one playing Sea of Thieves with us who said the Mandalorian was coming when he meant the Megalodon.
Oh, yes,
so we've all had our mistakes here.
That is true. I wish the Mandalorian was coming, but apparently it's just Jack Sparrow.
Oh my gosh. Well, we'll see. Disney's making crossovers. You never know. Maybe The Mandalorian makes his way into some content later down the road. But for now, we're going to jump into another space-based game, and that is Outriders. Square Enix recently telling shareholders a little bit of details on how Outriders did. Well, outside of the bugs that a bunch of us experienced, including the inventory wipes, which players love inventory wipes so much. They did drop off quite a bit in player count while that was being fixed. I think it's come up a little bit since then, but still not quite recovered to where it was prior, right around launch time, which is expected with a lot of these games. But from the quotes here from Square Enix's shareholders report, we have been pleasantly surprised as the digital sales ratio for the title have been very high, and the number of active users has also beaten our expectations. They go on to say, we believe that our decision to make Outriders available with Microsoft's Xbox Game Pass as soon as the title launched also worked in our favor. So praise not only on the Outriders title doing very well for a new IP coming out for People Can Fly and Square Enix, but also praise for dropping it day one on Xbox Game Pass. We've also seen Game Pass with a very successful launch for MLB The Show as well, coming out as one of the best sports titles for this year and really all time as far as sales go, which is huge because, I mean, baseball in general as a sport is much smaller than stuff like FIFA is, especially when you look at like soccer worldwide. So I think the fact that MLB is doing as well as it is, Outriders sold very well for a new IP. I really do think this is going to lead to more day one launches in Game Pass. Now, whether that ends up being something as big as a Call of Duty or Battlefield, that's still to be determined at this point. Maybe even a sports title down the road, like an NBA 2K or a Madden. Maybe not, because EA likes that money up front. But overall, I think just with the metrics coming out from MLB The Show, the metrics coming out from Outriders, whether it's a new IP releasing day one into Game Pass, or maybe it's something like a sports title, Madden has 2 weeks outside of Game Pass or 1 month outside of Game Pass, and then instead of waiting 3 or 4 months to move it in, maybe they move it in a little bit earlier. Again, I think this is just starting to set expectations for what we could see later down the road with Game Pass. Anything else on Outriders and that success there for Square Enix? Sweet. Shake that head, son. Okay, next one up, guys. This is a legend. I'm going to make this very clear at the beginning. We have no confirmation of this. This could be a flat-out lie. It could even be an Xbox gamer that is lying about it. I really have no idea.
Joey.
I don't know much about this guy, but it is starting to float around. I've heard a few sources corroborate on it, saying that they've heard things as well. So we're just going to lay this out there for you guys. If you are one of the users that might be affected, this is your warning. Again, we're not saying this is true. We're not saying this is 100% happening, but it is something to lay out there for you guys. So according to the Spanish YouTuber The Wiz Wiki, Sony has allegedly had a major data breach affecting millions of PS3 units. The hacker got access to millions of PS3 console ID numbers and can use the IDs for malicious activity online without the owner knowing. So does this mean your PS Online account is compromised if you had a PS3? No, they do not have access to your PS Online account. That is completely separate. This is your PS console ID. So again, John, you might know more about this than I do because I haven't played on one since the PlayStation 2. But to my knowledge, it's kind of like almost like your serial number, but a little bit more of an internal basis where they kind of have access to like your hardware's identification.
Yeah. So when I was reading it, it makes it sound a little bit like it's almost like peer-to-peer sharing, where it's like when your system is on, you're playing a game, but in the background, it's sharing files. It's running some sort of program behind the scenes that's linked to another computer elsewhere. It's kind of like what people do when they try to farm Bitcoin. At least that's the way I interpreted it when I was reading this, which still makes your system at risk. Anything that is done on your system is tied to that serial number. So that's where the danger comes in. So if this is true, it's definitely something you should be worried about. They tend to go after older pieces of technology because, Sony and other people that manufacture products like this tend to not actively keep security measures up to date because they're focusing on, the current generation and their next generation. So in this case, all the focus is on PlayStation 5. PS4 gets grandfathered in. PS3 probably hasn't been touched in well over a decade. So that's kind of the reason why. Again, my understanding of it, if it is true, this is how I'm interpreting it. That sounds like the reason why they're going after PlayStation 3 units. They're still a powerful machine. so they can get the job done, whatever they're trying to do. So again, like Joey said, if you have a PS3, just keep an eye out on this. If you notice your PlayStation 3 starts running a lot slower, it seems like it's being more active. If it turns on randomly and starts to work up, like PlayStations. Look, let's be real here, Sony fanboys. PlayStations are loud, and when it starts to heat up and that turbojet kicks on, it gets really loud. So if you're hearing that turbojet after 3 minutes of gameplay, there's probably something going on in the background. So just be aware, keep an eye out for news, see if anything comes to fruition of it. Definitely pay attention to the Sony social media pages. Check your email as well that you have registered for your PlayStation account. And if anything comes out, that's when they'll do it. So just keep an eye out for that.
And again, guys, not confirming this, but I think the other thing that kind of makes me think there is some truth to this is the fact that it's been floating around for like 4 or 5 days now, and Sony has not commented yet. That to me almost seems like a little bit of a PR move. You're not really seeing a ton of big outlets picking it up yet because they haven't heard 100% as of yet. And then on top of that, you would think if this was just going to be discredited, Sony would say, hey, that didn't happen. Let's post a quick statement. But because there's a little bit of more time, I'm assuming this is them kind of investigating the situation. So that kind of leads me to believe there is some truth, at least to this matter out there. So yeah, go ahead, keep an eye on it. If you guys are using PS3s, it's probably getting close to time to upgrade anyway. But this is one thing to keep an eye on. Again, it shouldn't affect your Sony ID, but there have been a lot of bans out there for PS3 consoles. It's kind of been weird because not as many people are on PS3 consoles, yet there's a bunch of accounts being banned because they use those PS3 consoles. So just keep an eye out on your PlayStation account, but more than anything, your PS3 hardware out there as well. Okay, moving to some more Sony positive news now.
What?
Sony has registered a new trademark for PlayStation Experience, PSX for short. There are rumors floating around about their next showcase dropping potentially June 28th or July 8th, according to 2 different rumors. I believe one's floating around on Reset Era and one is on 4chan. Yes, very reliable sources, ladies and gentlemen. So big grain of salt on these ones. I have heard rumors of them holding a summer showcase. I originally heard late June, early July, so these do kind of fit into that mold. But these could also be people that just heard similar rumors to I, and then they just ended up running with it and guessing a date. I don't know. So again, grain of salt. It supposedly came from a leaked email that went out to a news source, a different outlet out there that has been told they can't put it out due to an embargo as of yet. So if that is the case, someone did end up leaking it down the line. If these were to come true, though, if we do get a June showcase or an early July showcase, I think it would make sense from Sony's perspective, John. You look at E3 right now. So Sony had Ratchet & Clank. They took a lot of that early E3 kind of news and ran with it. Then we went into E3, and ever since E3 Sunday Showcase, it has been all Xbox, all Nintendo. Very few people talking about Sony, except for these little rumors here and there, like about Blue Box Studios, which we'll touch on a bit later. So if I'm Sony, I'm thinking, okay, big brother Microsoft over there is getting a lot of attention. My other Japanese counterpart here, Nintendo, is getting a lot of attention. Where are we kind of falling into the mold here? We haven't really had a big announcement since Horizon Forbidden West. Then we had Ratchet & Clank. It did very well, but it kind of died off very quickly in terms of social media because of the different showcases around E3. So if I'm Sony, I think this might be a good time to jump in and have a showcase. So whether it be next week or the following week, even a couple weeks after that, I think timeline-wise, it would make sense.
Joe, I feel like all of our credibility as a show went out the window as soon as we cited 4chan. And I agree with Squirtle. What is 4chan still a thing? Like, I remember 4chan was like big back in like the mid to late 2000s into the 2010s, but like I can't remember the last time like I even went to 4chan. Like it's been a hot minute. Yeah. So Sony is like so far underwater at the moment when it comes to announcing stuff. I mean, there was a major E3 event. You had Xbox and Bethesda doing their joint presentation, which blew the socks off a lot of gamers. Square Enix, Devolver, Ubisoft, all the great titles were out there. And really, Microsoft and Xbox made a massive splash this past week. They did a really, really good job and got a lot of people hyped up for their new system and what's coming out exclusively on their system, especially on Game Pass. Now PlayStation is going to have to do something big. Will a PlayStation experience be that big thing? I don't know. I mean, I was reading an article today that's saying apparently now PlayStation is open to the idea of crossplay, which I had to quickly put my drink down because I was going to spill it because I was laughing so hard. Because PlayStation and cross-platform play just does not make sense in my head. I just don't see PlayStation actually being willing to do that. Granted, they did do it with MLB The Show, but again, that was more pressure on from an outside source than anything else.
Well, remember, they get paid to do crossplay, though. Like, Epic pays them for crossplay in Fortnite.
Well, yeah, I get that, but at the same time, in that same article, PlayStation was also cited saying that their biggest concern with crossplay is that it's going to allow people the option not to choose a PlayStation for the next console. I think that's kind of a lame excuse. I really think that's a lame excuse. The reason, part of the reason why I went to the new Xbox was because of the lack of crossplay from Sony. They're just not open to it. You either have to pay them a crap ton of money, which Epic can do with Fortnite, and even then, for a while, Sony pushed back. Sony just wants to keep everything in-house, and I understand why they want to do that. But we've touched on this show multiple times the benefits of cross-platform play. Especially when you take a look at a game like Overwatch, a game that suffers from long queue times. They are now going to do cross-platform gaming. That's going to help cut down those queue times. It's also going to have a lot of people upset when the console players have to go up against the PC players, but nonetheless, that's a good option. That's a good example of the benefits of cross-platform play. So Sony really far behind the 8 ball here. E3, they didn't really do anything, if anything at all. They need to have something big, and they need to do it soon. The 28th or the 8th makes complete sense in my mind. We always have to wait for them to make an announcement, and then we have to see what they present.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest thing here is like Sony is making this argument, like you said, like crossplay, we don't want it because it's going to move people away from PlayStation. I'm thinking it's going to be the exact opposite effect. When I think Sony not having crossplay, similar to what you said with moving to Xbox, if I want to play with my friends and they're on Xbox, or they're on Nintendo, or they're on PC, I'm going to lean toward the console or whatever the platform is that allows me to play with my friends. So if Sony's saying we just want everyone on PlayStation, then yes, you have great exclusives, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, The Last of Us remake, when that eventually comes out. There are great titles over there, but most of those are single player experiences anyway. So you're not really drawing in a bunch of multiplayer from that. Now, I think they will come up with some multiplayer experiences here in the near future. Like Factions from Last of Us is one that's going to get announced. But outside of that, there's not really that many multiplayer draws. So you're banking on stuff like Call of Duty, Fortnite, those kind of third-party titles out there, Battlefield being another one. So yeah, I don't see any harm in bringing the crossplay. Yes, I guess people are interacting with other ecosystems, but as opposed to closing them off from those ecosystems and kind of forcing them to leave your console to find their friends somewhere else, I just think it makes more sense to open it up, even if you are not getting paid to do so. So we'll see what decision they end up making. But again, this rumor coming out June 28th or July 8th are the potential rumors for the showcase. I think you'll see some big stuff here. I think there'll be titles shown for PS4, PS5, and maybe the new PSVR. PSVR 2, I think is the name of it. I think you'll see stuff like God of War Ragnarok. I think we'll finally get a reveal that's more than just the logo. I think you'll see some more Horizon Forbidden West stuff. There's some other titles they haven't announced yet, what's that studio's name? Bluepoint. Bluepoint Games has a new game in the works. There's a couple other potential remasters being done. There's the rumor of a Last of Us remake. There's stuff going on with the Last of Us Factions multiplayer. So there's a number of other projects out there that they could mention. Now, whether they're going to be within the window of 2021 to 2022, some of those are probably going to drip a little bit further out. The Last of Us multiplayer has been delayed, I think, for almost a year and a half now at this point. So we'll see when that eventually makes its way out. I would assume by 2022 at least. But I think this will be a hard-hitting showcase. If they end up doing it at the end of June, beginning of July, they're going to want to come out. They're going to fight up against Microsoft and Nintendo. They're going to get back in that media in one way or another, finding some ways to bring some momentum back to their side. So I think they do bring out some of the big heavy hitters at that point. Okay, moving into some other games, updates, leaks, and rumors. Let's talk Blue Box and Kojima. Guys, we're going to put this one to rest because I don't believe there's too much more with this. There are a lot of Sony fanboys out there trying to find that momentum right now, like we were just talking about with Sony. I think they're going to go a little too far in this one. So Blue Box Game Studios is a small independent studio. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some very fishy things going around with this studio. There's a number of like 20-some factors that don't quite line up, it feels like, based on a couple different things that have been either tweeted out from the studio or tweeted out from Kojima or tweeted out from really PlayStation. In their blog post, they've even mentioned things like working on projects with Kojima before and continuing to work on projects. And then this Blue Box Studio ended up getting its own like exclusive PlayStation app that's going to release later this week. So there's a lot of things like, how does a small indie studio get this much credibility already with Sony without really doing too many games for them? So people have started to speculate that this is a front, in a sense, for the Kojima mafia of game development, in a sense. They've also taken a few different teasers to believe it is a Silent Hill title in the works. I can confirm there's a Silent Hill title in the works. I do not know if this is the studio behind it, but I don't believe it is. I think their title is just as they said it is. It's called Abandon. People are not super impressed graphically with what we originally saw, but since then they've supposedly done a lot of work on it. It's going to be a PlayStation exclusive. I'm going to go out at this point and say this is not Kojima working on it. I don't think, and again, Kojima, depending how you pronounce it, I believe it's technically Kojima in Japan. Regardless, legendary developer, legendary producer. I don't think he's involved in this project. I think a lot of PlayStation fanboys are hoping he is. They want to find a way to get momentum back in their corner. I think they're going to end up hurting a small indie studio in doing so, just by making unrealistic expectations on this. Now, I could be completely wrong. This could end up being some front for Kojima and some amazing Silent Hill title that comes out, but that is not what I'm expecting to at least see revealed later on down the road. Anything else you want to say on this one? I just feel bad for this indie studio. I feel like they're about to get abolished by a bunch of random people.
They are. And look, as someone who's a big fan of how is the correct pronunciation again? Kojima?
I believe it's Kojima. I used to say Kojima all the time. I think American is Kojima, but like in Japan, it's like Kojima or Kojima or something like that.
Yeah. So, I'm a massive fan of his work. He is a brilliant artist, game designer. He's a brilliant mind in the gaming universe. I'm definitely a big fan. I wouldn't say I'm not a part of the cult like following of him, but there is a very big following. So yeah, I feel bad for the studio because of they're gonna get slammed with this. But I think it's good if everyone just kind of like chills out here a little bit.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. They're going to reveal their app. It's supposed to be on Tuesday. Now it's got moved to Friday. That app will be coming out. I think you'll hear more about their title, Abandoned, not Silent Hill, in my opinion, but we'll have to see when that app eventually drops if we get some more details on the game and the team behind the game. Again, they've mentioned on Twitter multiple times that they are not associated with Silent Hill, that they're not associated with Kojima. But regardless, if you want to believe it or not, that is what we believe here at the podcast, and we'll see what the actual fact ends up being when they do announce it here later this summer. Over to Kojima on something he is actually working on. His studio, Kojima Productions, is hiring for a multi-platform action game, hiring for around 20 new positions. I believe this is that rumored agreement between Kojima and Microsoft on a Xbox Cloud project, one that was formerly a deal that was being made with Google Stadia before Google Stadia ended up kind of going under in a sense. Now that project has been moved over to Microsoft, and I believe at this point the deal has been signed with those 20 positions going up online for hiring. It pretty much, you're not going to put positions to be hired for a deal that's still in flux if it's potentially not going to happen. If the deal is going to go through, that's when you post the positions, in my opinion. They got posted last week, so based on that, I'm going to assume that deal was officially signed after being discussed in April and May. It did end up going through. With that being said, we saw another signing today. Xbox Game Publishing announced that Kim Swift, formerly working at Google Stadia and also a project lead on stuff like Portal, I believe she worked on Left 4 Dead and some of the Half-Life stuff as well. Kim has come over, and being one of Kojima's contacts over at Google Stadia, Kim will now be one of those contacts for Kojima over at Xbox Game Publishing, I believe. Again, some speculation going on here because just based on some things we've heard here and there, but I believe everything is coming into order and that deal has been signed. I'm personally expecting it to be announced at Game Awards at the end of the year, if it's ready to be shown then, if not by E3 2022 at the latest. I'm excited for this one. I think Kojima is going to push the boundaries. I was not a big fan of Death Stranding. I thought it was a very unique concept, and I think he's done some really unique concepts, some that I've liked, some that I've not liked. But one thing is for certain, regardless of who you talk to, he's a legendary developer, and he's going to push the envelope of game development in one way or another. I think giving him the full power of something like Microsoft's Azure cloud behind him could end up being some really cool creativity coming out from that camp. So we'll see what Kojima Productions puts together. I think he is working on a PlayStation exclusive project as well. So he's not like fully Xbox exclusive, guys. He will be working on both sides here, so don't get too much up in a fret. Should be some cool stuff coming out from him, though, later on. Also, rumors of a Quake reboot in the works. I believe we mentioned this on the show before, but now there's a couple new details that's coming out from Special Nick of Xbox Era. ID Software is being assisted by Machine Games on the project. The game will feature both single player and multiplayer, which I think is a big win. I am not the biggest Quake fan out there. I know some of the people in the OTN community, like Nixia Dash, for example, are big Quake fans, big fans of that arena shooter genre. Now we're kind of seeing a little bit of that built on a single player campaign. John and I enjoy multiplayer. We love our multiplayer experiences. But one thing that I think helps both of us connect with games is that single player experience. It allows us to dive more into the lore, get to know the characters on a little bit of a different level. So I think a title like Quake that has, in a sense, struggled with trying to build up its community, whether that be because the multiplayer is just very difficult to play for some, whether it be it's just very skill-based in certain areas, or whether it be just that lack of lore that's easily accessible. You can argue one way or another, but I think them going single and multiplayer here is probably going to be a win for the franchise. And last but not least, Special Nick also mentioned that it sounds like he'll be a female protagonist leading off the campaign as well. Last but not least, here in our little bit of rumors section, we're going to touch on EA. They reportedly announced an established IP revival. It's supposed to come out at EA Play Live next month in July. Guys, I'm pretty sure this new game or this revived game is going to be Dead Space. I've heard rumors that Titanfall is being considered for some reworks as well, or remasters or revivals or whatever you want to look at it as. Technically, the Titanfall IP is still active in Apex Legends, but it is not a mainline Titanfall game. I think we will eventually get something like a Titanfall 3 down the line. But for now, I believe this title being worked on by EA is Dead Space, and I think we'll hear about it in July. Couple upcoming things as we come to the end of today's show. We do have a streamer coming on after us. You guys should stick around. He's going to be playing Genshin Impact, and that is Ghost Runner of OTN Media. Just a couple other things before we wrap up, though. We're going to hit on some esports as well as some upcoming things to look out for this week. Lots of updates coming out this week. We have Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance. This is a new game. It is dropping at midnight tonight, available on Game Pass as well for console and PC users. I believe it's dropping everywhere to my knowledge. As far as the game itself, I don't think it's being... maybe the Nintendo Switch doesn't get it. Not 100% sure on that one. But if you're a D&D fan, definitely worth checking out. I have heard it is quite buggy, though, so you might want to wait a couple days for a few patches to come through on that one. Sea of Thieves is getting a major update, dropping with an 8 to 12-hour campaign, new enemies, new weapons, new cosmetics, and more. Working with Disney and their Pirates of the Caribbean IP on that one. That one is dropping on Tuesday. Halo Master Chief Collection is rolling into Season 7, which is going to focus on elites. Get your colored energy swords and much more when that one drops on Wednesday. Gears 5 is getting Operation 7.5's reveal coming on Wednesday as well. This is going to be the last half of their major operation. Operation 8 is going to be the rest of what we see with Gears of War's live service. They'll still do some things here and there, throw some cosmetics in, but as far as major changes go, that will be ending at the end of the year with Operation 8. So enjoy the last couple big operations coming out of that. With that being said, John, let's slide on over to some esports updates and wrap these up quickly. We're going to have the NBA 2K first on the list. What is happening in the NBA 2K League?
Absolutely. Some breaking news here just as we went live. There was a trade made, and this is actually a pretty big one. The 76ers GC and Bucks Gaming entered into a trade. It is going to be A-Rooks plus a third-round pick, leaving Bucks Gaming, the 0-10 Bucks Gaming. They are dead last in the league. They are on the struggle bus, and they will be going to the 76ers GC. In return, the Bucks are getting a strong playmaker in Calirak and a first-round pick from the 76ers. So that will be going to Bucks Gaming. That's a massive, massive trade for Bucks Gaming. So you're going to have Calirak going up with Reg, the point guard for the Bucks Gaming, who's averaging 23 points currently in the league. Solid point player. Now he's going to have a strong shooting guard next to him in Calirak, a really young player. that's been described as a playmaker. He looks for the open man. He doesn't necessarily get the primary assist. A lot of times his assists are a little bit low at only 1.4 per game. But he is a great ball mover. He gets the defense to move, and he's definitely the second person on the team to take the shot. And he'll fill that role again with the Bucks and hopefully right their ship there. With A-Rooks going over to the Sixers, they're going to get a little bit more of what they've had. I actually like this more as just the 76ers kind of trying to shake things up in the locker room a little bit. A-Rooks does have a better point per game total, averaging almost 5 more points a game. But it's going to be interesting to see how he fits in with One Wild Walnut, Season 1 MVP, because he pretty much runs the show in Philadelphia. So it'll be interesting to see that trade goes into effect now, I believe, and I believe that will take place here in time for the start of Week 5. Again, that is breaking, so there'll be more information there coming out in a bit.
Breaking right here on the show. Podcast listeners, it won't quite be as breaking for you, but you can listen it down the line on that podcast feed of your choice. Moving from NBA 2K over to Valorant, John, go ahead and wrap up this teaser. We have a teaser for Valorant's new agent coming with the next patch, which I believe drops this week. I'm not 100% sure on that, but this is going to be KO coming out. It looks like a sentient version of one of the training robots coming to life. An interesting kit being worked on here as well. There's kind of like a suppression blade built in that you can throw. The blade's going to stick to the first surface it hits, and then eventually it is going to suppress anyone in the radius of the explosion. There's a flash involved because Valorant loves its flashes, so you're going to get a few more of those. Then we have Fragment. The C ability will be equipping an explosive fragment, fire to throw. The fragment sticks to the floor and explodes multiple times, dealing near lethal damage at the center of each explosion. And then the ultimate coming out is going to be Null, Null/CMD. Instantly overload with polarized radionite energy that empowers KO and causes large energy pulse emissions to emit from his location. Enemies hit with these pulses are suppressed for a short duration. While overloaded, KO gains combat stim, and if KO is killed while overloaded, he is downed and enters a destabilized state, allowing allies to stabilize his core and revive him. So a few older mechanics like those flash grenades and like some of these explosions we've seen before in kits in Valorant and other games made by Riot Games. A few other ones here a little bit more unique that KO will be bringing to the table. He will be dropping with the next, I can't remember exactly what their things are called. One of them's an act, one of them's an episode. Whichever one is coming up next is he's going to be dropping in there. So we'll be touching down more on him as well as a number of patch notes. My boy Breach, it looks like he could be back in the meta. He's getting some nice changes as well. I've heard they're getting rid of one of his flashes, but increasing the width of his fault line. I think his ultimate is going to be a little bit more potent as well. So once we get that full set of patch notes, once we have the ability to really dive into KO's kit, we'll go ahead and break that down for you guys. Again, we're still kind of coming down from that E3 news high, so we haven't had too much time to break down all of the big moves as far as esports heroes and champions and everything going on in some of these titles. So we'll bring more to that later this week. With that, let's slide on over to Call of Duty, John, which the site, for some reason, is not loading for me. But if you guys got a chance to watch Call of Duty action, it was the end of Stage 4. Their major ended this past weekend. Pretty good viewership overall compared to what we saw throughout most of the season. It brought in a lot of people. It brought in Jon Rahm, as John said, from the U.S. Open. On top of that, the Atlanta FaZe go home as the champions. Jon Rahm's Chicago team not quite even making it to the championship as Atlanta FaZe gets the win 5-4 over the Dallas Empire. In third place is going to be the Toronto Ultra, finishing in third after a loss to the Empire 2-3. Overall, John, I wasn't super impressed with Call of Duty League this season, but I feel like as the season went on, as some of these teams got a little bit tighter here and there, this playoffs in general was very close. A lot of really good matchups that kind of went the distance here and there. I feel like there's a lot more excitement building up for the Stage 4 finals, and I hope the Call of Duty League can build on that as they continue to move forward as a league.
Yeah, they'll definitely continue to go forward. I mean, Call of Duty is a pretty big title. Again, we have our own reservations as to the longevity of the CDL, just with how often Call of Duty games come out. But yeah, I mean, it was a little lackluster, but at the end of the day, they held a successful tournament, and with esports being impacted by the pandemic and everything else too, Call of Duty League has chugged right along, and it's good to have that entertainment once again. So yeah, I mean, is what it is. I mean, hey, they got the shout out for the U.S. Open, so I mean, I feel like, no, regardless, that's a big dub in their book.
Absolutely. With that, guys, we'll slide over to League of Legends to wrap up today's episode. We're not going to do a deep dive on League today. We'll deep dive on it on Thursday just for the sake of time here. But just to touch on a couple things, John, is there anything in particular with the LCS that has stood out to you through the first couple weeks?
The fact that they're finally moving back into the studio. No, I mean,
that is a big win. I think that's huge.
It is massive. I mean, there were a lot of roster moves, and I really feel like 100 Thieves really needs to be given a lot of credit here. They made a lot of moves to really kind of take that next step. They took a lot of chances, and it's starting to pay off. A lot of the other organizations either didn't make moves, and they're fine with where they are in the pack. Other teams felt like they didn't need to make moves because their roster was more than capable of, holding tight of where they currently were. So I just find it interesting the constant ideology of roster moves in the LCS, because it feels like in one off season, in one mid season break, everyone's going to change their rosters. No one's happy with anything. And then the other time it'll be like, okay, one or two teams actually make some decent changes for the betterment of their team. And then the other teams are just accepting of mediocrity of where they're at, and they don't want to get any better. They're just fine with where they're at. And again, without relegation, without anything kind of holding them back because of the franchise model, they're completely content with that because they're still bringing in that guaranteed income. It's really for the fans. The fans are the ones that are kind of like, I want my team to do well. I want my team to perform. Why can't we go out and get good players? So it's just kind of interesting seeing that ideology in the LCS continue to evolve.
I think 100 Thieves is the big one to touch on here as well. The fact that they went out, they got Abadage, they brought him in as a new mid laner. Before that, they had a bunch of young Golden Guardians players that they saw promise in that they brought over. So they're not spending tons and tons of money. Now, Abadage wasn't cheap, but they're not spending a lot of money like someone like a Team Liquid, like a Cloud9 bringing perks in, like a TSM bringing Sword Art in. A lot of these teams spending a lot more money, while we do see a team like 100 Thieves that paid a little bit less money, considerably less money, honestly, compared to some of these import players, and now able to still be performing as the number 2 team right now in the LCS. On top of that, Cloud9 and Team Liquid, we haven't had a chance to address it yet. The whole roster conflict stuff going on over there. Sven was benched for Cloud9, and then for Team Liquid, Alphari was benched as well. I think the Alphari situation is a little bit more toxic over there at Team Liquid currently. The team has come out and made a statement. From what I've heard from different back channels, there were some disagreements going on between Alphari and some of the other players, as well as the coaching. And Jat ended up making a decision to bench Alphari shortly before a match ended up happening. Because of that, Alphari reacted negatively. We saw some questionable comments come out on Twitter back and forth between the players and staff. In the end, I believe Team Liquid is kind of working through their issues one way or another. It could end up being a big explosion later down the road. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Alphari go to another team or get traded back to Europe even. But overall, we'll keep an eye on that one. Sven, on the other hand, with Cloud9, did get moved to the bench. We really don't know too much of a reasoning why. His performance, sure, it wasn't the greatest out there, but it also wasn't terrible. As far as motivation goes, we saw C9 bench players in the past like Sneaky and Zyzel, and I don't remember, was it Blabber was the other one? I don't remember who the other player was, but someone else got benched on the Cloud9 a couple years ago for some motivation issues. I can tell you that is not the case with Sven. He's one of the more motivated players out there in general. So I think the only thing it could have been is some other kind of issue going on in the background. Now, he is not someone who is very big and upfront on social media. The Alphari type of player is going to come out there and smack talk whoever. Sven is not going to say anything, so we have not heard anything from his perspective on it. So maybe he plays in the summer, maybe he doesn't, and we'll keep an eye on the Team Liquid situation just to briefly touch on those since we haven't been able to the last couple weeks with E3. Over to the LEC, I think the biggest thing to touch on here is the jungle changes. We did see Fnatic move Bwipo into the jungle and end up pick up Adam for top lane. SK, on the other hand, ended up moving Treats over from support to jungle. One of the teams is doing well, the other team not so well. The jungle change for Fnatic looked a little bit rough in week 1. They ended up going 1-2. Since then, they're on a 3-win streak, though. They're doing very well. Bwipo seems to be settling in. He still gets over-aggressive in certain moments, and I feel like that is mistakes that will be made, but I feel like this Fnatic squad is working their way through them. They're a very aggressive team between Bwipo and Hilly, able to roam around a lot. Adam is really settling in well as a young rookie, in my humble opinion. So I think overall Fnatic is going to keep moving. Now, I don't think they're going to be a world's contender right off the bat. I don't even think they're going to beat some of these top teams over in Europe. The best one they beat so far was Rogue, who's pretty good, but they did lose to Mad Lions, and I think they probably will lose to G2, or at least be in a tight match with G2. They definitely won't dominate a G2 team, that's for sure. So overall, they are one to watch. The other one down here, though, SK. Treats moving over to the jungle has not been quite as pretty for the win record of SK. They are currently at 0-5. New look team Vitality is sitting at 2-3. So bringing Selfmade over, adding Lighter to the mid lane, SLT in the top lane. A number of changes being made over there as well. But the bottom of the table changes for Vitality, SK Gaming, Schalke, and Excel. All not really working out too well as those teams kind of find themselves right between that 7 and 10 spot at the moment. We'll see how things shake out as we get further along. But the other surprise up toward the top has got to be Misfits, Sean. This is a Misfits team that a lot of people did not have high expectations for. They didn't really finish very high at all in spring, and they're currently sitting at 4-1.
Yeah, they're looking good. I feel like the LEC is a lot more competitive than the LCS. I feel like those mid-tier organizations can really surprise a lot of people. And that's what we're seeing with Misfits once again. Put Mad Lions up there as well. Put Rogue up there. I mean, they're not your sexy names. They're not your Fanatics. They're not your G2. And they're not your rest in peace, Schalke. So, it's one of those things where it's like, it's great to see those non-major orgs that usually sit bottom, mid-tier in the standings really come forward in a new split and really take their league by storm and really kind of assert who they are going into that split. I love it. I love the fact that Misfits is making noise right now.
Absolutely. So we'll go ahead and keep a tab on that, guys. Again, we'll look into the Valorant changes. We'll look into the new League of Legends changes coming as well. Keeping the eye on the NBA 2K League and all of these other rumors going around in gaming. There should be some other announcements coming out this week that we'll touch on Thursday's show. But for now, keep tuned. Regardless if you get this on your podcast player of choice, whether you listen to us on YouTube, whether you come hang out live on Twitch, be sure to stay tuned because we'll have a lot more coming to you in the next coming weeks.
Well, Nation, that will do it for this edition of LvLUp Live. But before you go, head over to patreon.com/OTN and consider becoming a part of the Overtime Network. In return, you will get access to exclusive content that nobody else in the world can get unless they are a part of OTN Media. If you have not already done so, make sure you follow the show on Twitch to catch the next episode of LvLUp Live. If you listen to the show on our podcast feed, please do leave us a review. LvLUp Podcast is available on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, and Google Play, and pretty much everywhere else podcasts are collected. We would love to hear from you. In fact, we love to hear from our community so much. There are multiple ways for you to reach out to us. Joey, what are some of those ways?
Absolutely. LvLUp Nation. Find us on Twitter at LvLUp Live. That is LvLUp Live. In addition to that, you can follow the umbrella company OTN Media on Twitter and Facebook at OTN Media and on Instagram at OTN_media. Last but not least, find us on Twitch. The show is live on Twitch, guys. Come hang out. Sometimes we have a great chat. Sometimes it's a little bit quieter, but more of you should come hang out. It's twitch.tv/OTN Media. Mondays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time is where you can find us, as well as an assortment of other streams throughout the week.
All right, make sure you tune in this upcoming Thursday. That is June 24th, as we cover the latest and greatest in gaming esports news. Do your ears and eyes a favor. Hit that sub and follow button to know when the next episode of LvLUp Live is ready for your viewing and listening pleasures. We'll catch you all on Thursday. Have a fantastic week. Remember, be nice to your fellow gamers online, and as always,
Level up.